calls are the names of all the people who died in the September 11th terrorist attacks, not just here in New York, but in the Pentagon, in the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, all the policemen, all the firemen, all the EMS workers, everybody's accounted for here.
What the heck?
Okay, so look to your left now. You can see poking out under construction an Art Deco building with a green roof. That is number 40 Wall. Number 40 Wall Street was built in 1930 and designed by an architect named Peter Builder. And the two of them ended up in this kind of competition to see whose building would be taller. So each one kept alternating their plans to make their building the tallest in the world. So when someone from the flagpole on that building, he thought, then he looks up to Midtown and sees the spire rising by the Chrysler Building, and with that, the Chrysler Building became the tallest building in the world. So, Mr. Seth, we'll see you again. Oh, there it is.
Come on.
Please, yeah. Okay, so that building with the green roof there, the tallest building in the world for 11 days. Just 11 days. Today it's called the Trump Building. It was bought in the early 90s by someone named Donald J. Trump. Anybody know whatever happened to him? No? So here on your left now, you're going to see the Museum of Jewish Heritage and Holocaust Memorial. You'll see there's 6 tiers on top of that building. You can already see the who was the Jewish paper who were murdered during the Holocaust. Then you're going to see on your left here, Pier A, which is where 80 years ago the Silver Line first set sail. And you're going to see there's that white tent there. That's the security checkpoint to the Statue City cruises that take you out to the Statue of Liberty and or Ellis Island. And I want you to look behind it at that brown brick structure out there, that's what's called Castle Clinton.
Yeah, I may go inside. It might be easier to hear. Yeah.
1811 as a military base in anticipation of what would be the
It's hard to hear what he's saying.
Luckily for New York, the war was controlled and came to our shores. So it was never used in battle. And then
It's the flag.
Yeah, like I can't hear him.
So go down to the
and the Castle Garden Amphitheater.
floor and out on the front.
That's
Okay.
where early in his illustrious career, P.T. Barnum presented a series of concerts starring an opera singer from Stockholm named Jenny Lind. And she became known as the Swedish Nightingale. She was hugely popular, like Beyonce or Taylor Swift is today.
You're saying here?
Yeah, here, this way then.
And then from 1885 to 1891, that was the Immigration Center before it moved out to Ellis Island. And then from 1896 to 1940, that's where the George Aquarium is located. This is Battery Park here, that's so named because there once was a mountain.
Yeah, my phone overheated. I had to take the case off.
And when I was about 10 years
I was
old,
trying to do a stream and it just...
surgery center here.
What?
Okay, so now we get to the East River, and the East River technically isn't a river, it's a saltwater tidal stream. That's part of the Atlantic Ocean. And so this was part of the Atlantic Ocean, and when the first jumps out, and by the way, on your right is the borough of Brooklyn. It's our most populated borough. 2.7 million people live in Brooklyn. If it were to become an independent city again, as it was prior to 1898, it would actually be the fourth largest city in the United States of America. Now, okay, so now the East River, like I said, somewhat. They had found the ideal port because the water down here is unlikely to ever the ideal port all the way until the year 1867. In 1867, the unthinkable happened and the East River froze solid. The East River froze solid and brought all commerce between New York and Brooklyn to a standstill. So that's when the two cities realized, you better build a bridge. Well, that's easier said than done. Any bridge would have to be long enough to span the East River and tall enough for ships with really tall masts to go underneath it. So the man with the answers was a German-born engineer by the name of John August Roebling. John August Roebling had designed a suspension bridge which connects Cincinnati, Ohio to Kentucky.
I'm gonna go aside like so it's a little easier to hear the guy. Yeah.
Bridge for about to go under. So Roebling designs this bridge, and early in the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, he's standing on a dock on the Manhattan side, and a ferry boat comes by and crushes his foot, and he develops tetanus and dies.
Oh.
So his son Washington Roebling takes over the construction of the bridge. Washington builds a diving bell so they can dive down to build the Manhattan Tower with it. And he gets air bubbles in his bloodstream and suffers from Caisson's disease, or the bends. And he's bedridden for the rest of the construction of the bridge. So he has to monitor the progress of the bridge from his sickbed through binoculars here in Brooklyn Heights. Yeah, the house here. And from his sickbed through binoculars, he monitored the progress of the bridge. He still needed somebody on site to supervise and take notes for him. So for that, he dispatched his wife, Emily Roebling. Now, my friends, this was the 19th century. Emily Roebling shows up at the construction site, and the guys working on the bridge are like, "Hey, I'm taking no orders from the broad." And they're told in no uncertain terms, "Listen, buddy, you either take orders from this broad, or you ain't got a job, capiche?" So they learned to take orders from Emily Roebling, who really knows her stuff. She becomes the first woman civil engineer, big crack in that glass ceiling. So, after 14 years of construction, the Brooklyn Bridge had its dedication on May 24th, 1883. And a week later, they had their first full day of traffic, and a whole bunch of people are crossing the bridge. Somebody trips and falls, and some idiot yells out, "The bridge is going to collapse under its own weight!" And there you're right, that building says Eagle Warehouse and Storage Company, the red brick building. That warehouse was turned into an apartment building in 1980. You know, so the first people who ever lived there was me. That's my childhood home, right there. And so in 1814, things went high-tech when Robert Fulton, the man who invented the steam ferry, started regular steam ferry service to and from Manhattan from that site. Steam ferry service continued until 1924. All right, so we have this Adidas is sponsoring this little, I don't know what you call it, World Cup Carnival, I guess. And then a big screen set up if you want to see the game. All right, and so then you're going to see on your right here, we have the James Carousel and that glass structure there. And with that, we enter what used to be called Greersville. That's what they used to call this neighborhood on your right. Greersville was named for the Greer Cardboard Box Company. See the building with the big clock in it? That was where it used to be where they manufactured cardboard boxes. And also it's where this neighborhood is also where they manufactured Benjamin Moore paint, Brillo pads, Eskimo pies, all were manufactured here. And today this neighborhood is usually called Dumbo. Dumbo, it's one of the Illinois. No, it's got nothing to do with the Disney elephant. We're going underneath the Manhattan Bridge now, which opened on New Year's Eve, 1909. And Dumbo is an acronym that means down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. You see, back during the you see, in the 70s and 80s, artists who could no longer afford to live in Soho or Tribeca, they started moving into Dumbo because they had a lot of abandoned factory lofts here. and they began using the factory lofts as inexpensive living and workspace. And so this became a by the end of the 90s, this was a real thriving artistic neighborhood. But by 2000 but by around the year 2000, wouldn't you know it, all the big-time real estate developers began buying up the buildings and kicking the artists out, turning the lofts into real fancy luxury condominiums. It's a very familiar pattern in New York. Look there on your right. See that big black tower? It looks like something right out of Lord of the Rings. Well, that is the Brooklyn Tower. Very imaginative name, huh? Put a lot of thought to that. Yeah, it's a 90-story tall residential tower in downtown Brooklyn. It's the tallest building in New York City that's not on the island of Manhattan.
I don't see that.
Okay, so now we pass Wallabout Bay on your right here, and this is where you'll find the Brooklyn Navy Yard. From 1801 to 1966, this was the Brooklyn Navy Yard was one of the largest ship manufacturing centers on Earth. And some real celebrity ships were built here, like the USS Monitor, USS America, USS Maine, which blew up at Havana Harbor, left in the Spanish-American War. Remember, the Maine was the famous battle cry. And the United States' involvement in World War II could trace its beginning and ending to this Navy Yard. It was here that the USS Arizona was built, and that was sunk at Pearl Harbor, but it was also here that the USS Missouri was built, and it was on the deck of the USS Missouri that the United States and Japan signed their peace accords, thus ending World War II. And Rosie the Riveter, who died not too long ago, was a real person who worked there. Okay, so now you're right here. We're in Williamsburg, Brooklyn now on your right. And Williamsburg used to be a very German neighborhood. Where there's Germans, there's beer. And right where you are, you're right here where these glass buildings are, is where the Schaefer Brewery used to be. One time there were over 40 breweries in Brooklyn. More than ever been in Milwaukee. Now, there's still something. There's also the Brooklyn Brewery, I think it's more of that. But right now what I want you guys to do though is look to your right and you're going to see a dome building, just a sec. That used to be the main branch of the Williamsburg Savings Bank Company. Here it comes. It was designed by George B. Post, who designed the New York Stock Exchange. And you can see it now. I think it looks like the Duomo in Florence, Italy. So now we go underneath the Williamsburg Bridge, which opened in 1903. And it connects the Lower East Side of Manhattan on your left to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And after it opened, a lot of immigrant groups from the Lower East Side started moving into Brooklyn. A lot of Italian families settled in Williamsburg. To this day, they have a big Italian-American Pride Festival called the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. They bring out a big obelisk called the Julia area.
Over here.
In the 30s and 40s, a lot of Hasidic Jews escaping the Holocaust settled here, and to this day they have a huge Hasidic and Orthodox Jewish population in Williamsburg.
Oh, what's that? Could they see? Was that a reference to you being there? Was that a reference?
Oh, I didn't hear what he said.
Oh, he said, "Little boys, to get down, please." I don't know if he was. Oh, maybe he was referring to somebody inside.
Then when we turn, look to your right, you're going to see the Borough of Queens will be on your right once we turn. Queens is the second most populated borough with a population of 2.4 million people. And it's by far the largest borough in land area. Queens is actually bigger than Manhattan, you have two airports in Queens. Oh, they get to be at two airports.
Are you gonna do? Hold on.
Bridge opened in 1909 and 2011. It was renamed after the mayor of New York, Ed Koch.
Like, you can have a shared album because I'm live streaming, so I can't really get any photos.
There it is out there with a slope roof. That building was built in 1977 and has a slope roof because they wanted it to use solar electricity and they failed to point the roof directly at the sun. Oops. Now look to your right. You see that building with a flat roof there, the MetLife building to the right of it. There's a silver building with a pointy top. That, of course, is the Chrysler building. The Chrysler building opened in 1930 and it was for less than a year the tallest building in the world. Quickly eclipsed by the Empire State Building. Chrysler stands at 77 stories. The Empire State Building, 102 stories. So the Chrysler Building was actually already being built when it was bought by the auto magnate Walter P. Chrysler. And Walter P. Chrysler told Van Allen he wanted it to be an advertisement for Chrysler automobiles. So the building is trimmed with steel chrome and decorated with gargoyles that are meant to look like ornaments from a 1929 Chrysler. So here on your right, these brown buildings are public housing projects, called the projects of PJ. Manhattan is the most populated borough. But a lot of the families that moved into Brooklyn, of course, were Jewish. And they still went to temple on the Lower East Side. So on Saturdays, they would walk across the bridge, because you're not supposed to drive a car on the Sabbath. Fun? Alright, good. This is the Collier's Hook Park on your right. Collier's Hook, one time the lowest rung on the economic ladder in the whole city. Now we have a beautiful park here. Alright, just a reminder, if you want to use your phone for anything with sound, please use your earphones so only you can hear it. Okay. So look here to your left now. Once again, you're going to see the Brooklyn Navy Yard out there on your left. And the Brooklyn Navy Yard today, most of it, has been turned into the Steiner Movie Studios. That's a big film and television production facility where they shot scenes from such films as Joker, The Wolf of Wall Street, Inside Man, The Greatest Showman, The Departed, Bridge of Spies, many other shows. Many other movies, and also TV shows like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Just Like That, Gossip Girl, all that scenes shot out there. Okay, I'm about to go back under the Manhattan Bridge. Look to your right, you're going to see that expressway there. That is the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Expressway. It's built on top of debris from the Battle of Britain after World War II. We sent supply ships out to the UK, and in order to ballast the boats on the way back, they filled the holds up with all the rubble from the Blitz, then filled them out of the shipping docks that were here, and on top of that, they built the expressway. All right, so we get out from under the bridge, look to your right, you see a white building with a cupola on top of it, the gold statue on top of the cupola. That's the David N. Dinkins Municipal Building, built in 1914, renamed about 10 years ago after David Dinkins, our first African-American mayor. The gold statue on top of it is called Civic Fame. To the right of that building, you'll see that building with a pyramid on top of it. That is the Thurgood Marshall U.S. Supreme Court House. That courthouse is where Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were sentenced to death on espionage charges in 1953, where Bernie Madoff was given 125 years in the New House and over $45 billion, where Martha Stewart was sent to Camp Cupcake on insider trading charges, and where most recently Sean P. Diddy Combs was indicted for doing some things I'm not allowed to talk about on the boat, but he's indeed Diddy now. So let's go back to the Fulton Ferry Landing on your left there, because that is the razor's edge of American history. On August 27th, 1776, the Battle of Long Island took place in what was then the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And George Washington and his troops suffered a terrible defeat at the hands of the Redcoats. Over 800 injuries, 300 casualties, over 1,000 people captured or gone missing. And so Washington and his remaining troops came here to Brooklyn Heights, where they were basically sitting ducks. But on August 29th, a heavy rain went out of the city, a thick cloud of fog went out of the East River, and Washington and his troops escaped and underneath the cloud of fog, and if they hadn't, well, we wouldn't have celebrated our 250th birthday recently, that's for sure. So look to your right there. There we have another one of our boats, the Circle Line Brooklyn, but look behind it, there's that ship with really tall masts. That is the SS Wavertree. The Wavertree was built in 1885, and it came over here by way of Liverpool, England. It's the biggest thing to ever come out of Liverpool. Okay, I'm just kidding. That's Jerry the Pacemakers. Okay, look here to your right now. You're going to see there's a gap between these two buildings here. Well, that's Wall Street right there. Wall Street gets its name because there once actually was a wall that spanned the width of Manhattan Island that ran along the northern perimeter of New Amsterdam. And so from Wall Street down to the southern tip of Manhattan Island was New Amsterdam, the Dutch city. And in 1664, the British seized New Amsterdam, and it became the English colony and city of New York. So then so later on, in 1699, they tore down the wall on Wall Street. Wall Street became a major center for business and commerce and trade. Over the years on Wall Street, they traded stocks, bonds, securities, and boy, I'm sorry to have to say this, human beings. There was a slave market on Wall Street, right at the waterfront. Slavery wouldn't be abolished in the state of New York until the year 1826. Okay, so here we have the downtown heliport on your right. On April 30th, 1789, George Washington was sworn in as our first president on Wall Street. Now, Wall Street...
wait.
Well, let me, first of all, look to your right. Look here to your right, you're going to see all these... you see all these buildings out here on your right.
I lost my case.
Okay, believe it or not,
shoot.
what you're looking at here on your right is one of the oldest developed parts of the entire United States of America. The streets out down here were laid out before Boston or Philadelphia ever even existed. It just doesn't look like it. Because between the Great Fires of 1776, the Great Fire of 1835, and the fact that we didn't start preserving old buildings to the Landmarks Preservation Committee was formed in 1965, there are hardly any old buildings out here. This is Governor's Island on your left. That big white octagonal thing you see there, that is a ventilation tower for the Hugh L. Carey Brooklyn Veterans Home. Now, this Governor's Island is so named because during the English colonial period, the English governor, he actually had a estate out here. And before that, though, in 1624, when the Dutch West India Company first hired a bunch of Belgian Huguenots to populate the colony, they first settled here. First they settled here, and they called this Nut Island because there were a lot of nut trees out here, but they only stayed for about a year. Then they went to the island of Manhattan, as the Lenape, the indigenous people, called Manhattan, which meant land of many hills. So from 1783 to 1966, Governor's Island was a military base for the United States Army. These buildings out here used to house military families. And then from 1966 to 1996, it was a base for the U.S. Coast Guard. Then in 1996, the Coast Guard closed the base. And this became a public park, actually. Staten Island Ferry is a free ferry service to and from Staten Island, our least populated borough. Up until 1997, if you wanted to take the Staten Island Ferry, it cost you 50 cents. But now it's free. Why is it free? Well, in 1997, the city came up with the MetroCard program, which lets you take unlimited rides on all the buses and subways in New York City. But there's no subway or local bus that goes out to Staten Island. So the people lived out there were complaining. They were like, hey, well, we still got to pay 50 cents to take the Staten Island Ferry. So they made the Staten Island Ferry service free. Now look out there on your left, you're going to see there's that big bridge out there. That is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. That connects our most populated borough, Brooklyn on the left, with 2.7 million people, to our least populated borough, Staten Island on the right, with just under 500,000 people. That bridge opened in 1964. Before it was built, it connected Staten Island to the rest of New York. That bridge changed everything. And it was the longest suspension bridge in the world when it was built, longer than the Golden Gate Bridge in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it was named after Giovanni di Verrazzano. He was an explorer for the Principality of Florence who back in 1524 dropped anchor there in the Narrows and was the first European person to reach what's now New York. And if you remember the movie Saturday Night Fever, there's a scene where a guy falls off a bridge That was the bridge to the Itaú. All right, my friends. Coming up on your right will be 200 tons of awesome. The one and only, the Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty was a gift for the people of France, and she's officially titled Liberty of the World. She was designed by a French sculptor named Frederick Auguste Bartholdi. Her pedestal, designed by an American architect named Richard Morris Hunt, and her interior skeleton designed by a guy named Gustav Eiffel.